Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. Do you get it? Do you get Tesla? Do you understand the EV industry? It's amazing how early on stages some people instantly get a concept, whereas others it can take a lot longer for. I was lucky. For some reason, I always loved the idea of an electric car. I was a car enthusiast, but can still remember when I bought a copy of Road and Track that had the EV1 on the front cover back in 1996. Wow, this was cool. An electric car, that would be amazing. It would mean you don't have to go to gas stations anymore. What an invention. Genius. Sure, EVs were actually invented over a century ago. Of course, all the issues in the world that oil created too would be somewhat alleviated with electric transport. I even used to think how awesome it might be to have my own electric car company. Of course, watching Who Killed the Electric Car just further enforced my beliefs, seeing how passionate these owners were about their cars and how much they loved them. I mean, GM, what were you thinking? Crushing them? No. But the EV1 was never practical for the majority of the world. It didn't have a suitable range or charging times, but it was suitable enough for a lot of drivers, especially who are willing to go to extra efforts of having electric. Not even too dissimilar to some Nissan Leaf drivers today. No joke, some of these Leaf owners really do go to some extreme efforts on their road trips due to the minimal range, but they make it work. But then shortly after the documentary, I was in my office and my brother told me that one of the PayPal founders had started an electric car company. I did later see the same article in my news feeds that day, but officially, my brother did first tell me about Tesla. However, the specs, I couldn't believe it. Range over 200 miles? Well, it wasn't difficult to work out, given how very few days I ever drive more than 200 miles, that this is actually a practical electric vehicle. On top of that, it had this outstanding performance too. I was sold instantly. We even wanted to invest in Tesla as early back then. Tesla had done it. They'd made an electric car with a range not too dissimilar from ICE. There was one major drawback though. This was going back some time, even before the smartphone. Batteries, well, lithium-ion had been making improvements, particularly with advances in laptop batteries. Right, laptop batteries. Due to laptops being so expensive, especially back then, well, they could justify an expensive battery to go with them. Thus, we had a more energy-dense battery, more suitable for EVs, especially when compared to the lead-acid-based batteries that the EV1 was using. But the drawback was the price. Like we're saying, laptop batteries are not cheap. The car ended up costing in excess of $100,000, not exactly a mainstream price point, and this is when $100,000 was a lot of money still. But it was a start. Then, eventually, Tesla floated, and I couldn't invest. Unfortunately, I was facing the worst financial position of my life. I had a house with a mortgage of 8% interest rates. The GFC had really hurt me, but just when I was starting to recover, my city was hit by a fatal earthquake, and then a few months after that, I lost my business. I didn't want to live in my city anymore as it was literally broken, so I rented out my damaged house and travelled the world. I remember when I got to the States and started in Seattle, I'd rented a Jeep Cherokee and I was driving through the city, and then I spotted it. Wow, a Tesla, a real Tesla. I can't believe it. I had never seen one before. This was early 2016. Then I saw another and another. Obviously, I was admiring them as a car enthusiast, but I hadn't taken my investing cap off either. I had a rough idea of how many Model S's I'd seen around, and then compared that to how many BMW 7 Series or Mercedes S-Class or Audi A8s I'd also seen. These cars were also at a similar price point, and of course, I'm looking for ones of similar age. It occurred to me that the Model S seems to be massively outnumbering them, despite it being so expensive too. This was first-hand market research. Eventually my city and roads were in a better state and became more livable, and after waiting years for the insurance company to repair my house, I could eventually sell it and finally invest in Tesla. Then I had no house, but I did have a bit of capital, enough for me to finally have a decent amount in the market, whilst also maintaining enough capital for a deposit on a house when the time comes. I had in the meantime also been rebuilding another failing business, and it was finally successful enough to pay me a reasonable living at this stage. But I needed to learn a new industry again, EVs, and I spent as much time as I could in learning about Tesla and batteries and electric vehicles. Although one major resource I missed was Twitter. I tended to spend more of my time on Facebook and was an admin in one of the biggest Tesla investment Facebook groups. But yeah, that's some advice to all of you. The Twitter Tesla community is brilliant, and you can find me on there too. Anyway, I finally managed to invest in Tesla. I had enough conviction to sell my house just to get in. The thing is, I just knew that Tesla was going to be a success back then. It seemed obvious. It was like, wow, Someone has made this absolutely incredible priceless product that can move without using gasoline, and they put a sticker price on it, and people can actually buy it. I mean, imagine another extreme. If someone made spaceships, for example, and managed to get the cost down to $100,000. Okay, Teslas aren't quite spaceships, but do you see what I mean? A company has been so clever, they managed to make the impossible and at an affordable price. And that's kind of how I felt about the product. It's a too good to be true product. But that was back then. And even later on, when I found more conviction when the Model 3 was out and literally doubled down my investment. These gross margins were insane on the Model 3, and these prices are so affordable. This is an amazing product. But nowadays, since then, we've witnessed that Tesla can make huge profits, and that there is so much demand, of which we were always being told there was not by all the friendly mainstream media. Yet still, so many people struggle for this to get through to their heads. I don't know what biases they can't let go of, but there's definitely something. It's clear as day now, yet some people are telling me Tesla stock is headed to $100. Even despite my passion regarding this stock, I still couldn't convince any of my friends to invest in Tesla, at least not until after the split. I stayed with my dad for 2 weeks though, and it took me about that whole trip to finally convince him to place a reasonable chunk of his retirement in Tesla. His dollar cost average is even lower than mine now. Although it was an ongoing thing, as I had to stop him from selling any shares a few times when the FUD was strong. I missed Apple. I admit I thought after the iPod was out, then it was too late. Of course, until they brought out the phone. I missed Amazon too, but I wasn't a full-time investor back then. I was building an e-commerce business. But what I didn't miss was Google, Microsoft, Adobe, and Ask Jeeves, my only 50 bagger, which eventually turned into a 500 bagger, except I sold at the 50. Oh, and I was barely 20 at the time. But there was no such thing as memes back then. No one taught me to hodl. We just took profits when we thought. Also, a lot of it was options trading anyway. The point I'm making is I'm not saying I'm some special person that can instantly get how any stock will perform. No one is. I'm saying that there are certain businesses and industries or products that just seem to click in people's heads. Also, if you think you understand one of these and it makes sense to you, then be very careful about taking on other people's feedback. Sure, hear them out, but don't go by their opinion. There were plenty of credible people around telling us to short Tesla, that it's going bankrupt. The big boys will take them out whenever it's feasible for them. I even talk to people I know, some high up in the likes of JP Morgan, investment bankers, people on boards of companies. All of them told me Tesla was failing. Of course, I was happy to entertain every single reason as to why, and would rebuttal every single point every single time, and they had no reply. Yet, did I convince them to change their mind and buy Tesla? Now their points have been proven absolutely moot? No, that wasn't enough for them either. I'm shocked at the comments I still get on my videos on YouTube. There seem to be so many people against Tesla, yet when you hear their reasons why, they make no sense, and some even back this up with their money and short Tesla. Some people really take a long time to get it, or just never do. What's going to happen to these people when the entire nation has electrified vehicles everywhere? Is there going to be some point where their mind finally flips and is like, oh, electric cars, I get it now. Oh wow, they're amazing. Probably a good investment. The saying of, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, feels like it rings strong here. I have tried to value Tesla from every single perspective I can imagine. As you know, I explain it relentlessly. I just don't understand how some people still don't get it. But well done to all of you who realized. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.